As we check the state of our Dynasty fantasy football rosters, it's time to have a little look back ahead and see how our rookies from 2025 fared. And the first thing I've got for us to have a look at today is the rookie rankings over the last decade. So this is all rookies, PPR points over the whole season, and where this year's batch match up historically. Any surprises there, Ed, that you can spot?
Not really. I mean, I think it's really interesting to see, and we'll come on to them a bit later, that there's 4 tight ends in the top 10 because I think historically we've always said that tight ends struggle in their first year, but it doesn't look like it's something that's happened over the last few years, and even more so this year. And yeah, a quieter year for wide receivers. Nobody knocking on the door of, or even close to the door of the top 10, but I still think, the likes of Ted McMillan had a really good season.
Let's have a quick quiz for you, Ed, but also the viewers. Let's start with quarterback. Over the last decade, who is the highest performing fantasy quarterback?
Rookie fantasy quarterback. Is it Jaden Daniels?
It is Jaden Daniels. Second, Justin Herbert. Third, Bo Nix. Fourth, Kyler Murray. Can you remember when Kyler Murray was good fantasy?
Yeah, he was the next big thing, wasn't he? Yeah.
Running backs. We're going back a little bit further than Jaden Daniels, who is the highest scoring running back. The top 3 are the creme de la creme of fantasy over the last decade.
Saquon
number 1.
Is Zeke in there? No.
Zeke is number 2. Or go for the hat trick. Number 3.
Oh, who would number 3?
We love him, but I think he might be done.
We love him, but we think he might be done. Derrick Henry?
Alvin Kamara. Derrick Henry's not done. Derrick Henry.
sorry, Mark.
And then fourth, Najee Harris. Fifth, Kareem Hunt. So once again, some fading stars on that list. Tight end is, you've already alluded to it, is really, really interesting. So looking at tight end, obviously, we've said it year on year on year. Rookie tight ends do nothing except for this year and last year and the year before. Brock Bowers at the top, 2024. Sam Laporta, number 2, 2023. We've got Tyler Warren there in third. Harold Fanning Jr. in fourth. Fifth, Kyle Pitts. We have to the first one out of the last few years, it's Evan Engram back in 2017. And then went to Colston Loveland. So fancy tight ends, I think we do need to take more note of, but we'll get into that in a bit more detail. Let's move on, though, Ed, to look at our running backs. And the man on the screen, Ashton Genty, was the player we were raving about pre-season. He still finished the highest of all of those players, and rightly so. We've got our little concerns about that as well, though. Let's just have a quick look. For the 5 players on the screen, though, they were all in the top 24 in fantasy points per game, which really goes to show what a solid rookie running back class it was. RJ Harvey's 12.2, put him points per game as the RB24, and Cam Scatterbo's 16.0 was the RB9. Obviously, depending on injuries and time missed, they're all kind of all over the place a little bit more, but a really, really solid season. Let's start with Ashton Genty, though. The Dynasty rookie draft of 101. Is that still fair? Would you be happy if you paid that price for him still with what we've seen this season?
I mean, the situation and the team he's landed in is affecting him. Of course it is. And I think maybe that has affected him more than maybe people thought it would do because he was being drafted higher than that, wasn't he, in terms of people were expecting him to be a top 5-6 running back almost. And he's not really been close to that. So, yes, there's definite value still in there, and you expect the Raiders to get better. But maybe not quite as valuable as he was.
From a redraft point of view, I think he's in the bust category. From Dynasty, time will tell. Only had 5 top 12 weeks and 7 weeks under 10 points. Let's be fair to him, though. PFF ranks the Raiders O-line dead last in the 2025 season. Genty showed flashes of that star we know he can be. And if the Raiders can improve just a bit, I think that will help him no end. He accounted for 24% of all fantasy points scored by the Raiders, which holds up against other fantasy studs as a proportion. So Nakua made up for 24% of the Rams' fantasy points. CMC made up for 26% of the 49ers. So we know the role is there. Proportionally, he is filling that points tally exactly right. We just need the Raiders to be better overall, don't we? I want to jump on to mid player in the middle there, Amari Hampton next. So he finished as the RB 35, 15.1 fantasy points per game. Drafted as a 102 in rookie drafts, and he looked like he was going to repay that and then some before his injury. His production also needs to be spotlighted in the fact of how banged up that Chargers O-line was. This could also be a talking in favor of Justin Herbert, and we will do in the offseason, because I think surely it is impossible for the O-line to be any more banged up than it ended up being. Projected to be amongst the best preseason. They lost Slater, they lost Alt. On top of that, Becton just didn't live up to expectations. For Hampton, 3 top 12 performances in 9 games. Went missing in the wild card round. Was carrying an ankle injury then as well. Not fantasy relevant, just role relevant. 5 total touchdowns, though, and his use in the passing game means that next year, I think we're going to see more of what he has to offer as a fantasy star, and he could also easily improve on that 4.4 yards per carry that we saw this year. RJ Harvey. Now, he rose up rookie draft boards during the offseason, finished with an ADP of the 106 in our Dynasty drafts. Dobbins did his bit to take away that workload from him early in the season. But his season ended in week 10. He was averaging at that point 15 carries per game versus Harvey's 5. The handover did look like it was on the cards around week 8. But after that, Harvey was a top 12 running back 6 times. So we've seen he's got the role in there. 58 targets, 47 receptions, and 5 touchdowns really helped from a fantasy point of view. And it would seem that Sean Payton, talking in the way he would use him, similar to how we saw him use Kamara for years in the Saints, maybe wasn't a comment to be ignored, maybe wasn't just hyperbole. Will we see those targets rise next year, though? I certainly hope so. Now, it looked like I had got it phenomenally wrong with Travion Henderson. I think I spent every opportunity saying how great I thought Henderson was going to be. And it looked like, I got it like disastrously wrong. He ended up being the rookie draft 103, felt like a bust until week 10. And then it got a little bit muddy again with Stevenson. So Henderson, for me, takes over in 2026. The problem is that Stevenson isn't going anywhere as he enters year 3 of that contract. And Stevenson isn't the sort of player I can imagine someone who's going to break the bank for in a trade either. He's shown he has got that Gibbs-like score from anywhere ability. Is score from anywhere ability a phrase? So I think we can maybe coin it.
You just coined it, Mark.
Sense. Let's go. And I just think that the Patriots' offense are very interesting. Therefore, Henderson will be very interesting moving forwards. His work in the receiving game wasn't as significant as we had hoped. 35 receptions, 221 yards. So hopefully that picks up in year 2 as well. We are going to get to Cam Scatterby in a minute. I know you'll be far more excited to talk about because he was a massive target of yours during the offseason. But Quinshon Judkins, RB20, 12.2 fantasy points per game. Is it just me or did it not feel like that last season?
What, as in it felt better than that or worse than that?
I don't think I paid him the attention that was worthy of how well he actually did.
He had a really good run of games, didn't he? And I think there was one particular week where we recommended to get him in starts of the week, didn't we? And he had a phenomenal week. So yeah, maybe he kind of had that low key under the radar consistency because that's pretty solid. Top 20 is impressive in that Brown side.
And I think that's what it is. Is it just the stink of Browns that kind of makes us not pay, especially as a Ravens and Bengals fan? Maybe we just didn't pay much attention. But the one concerning stuff we look at him is that 3.6 yards per carry. But you look at that against the 7 rushing touchdowns. It's that inside the 5 battering ram ability that he has that I think we're going to see more and more of. That is the one thing that does make me think, is he going to be reliable or is he going to be dependent on that work inside the red zone? A player that I don't think we can find anything negative to say about, though, Ed, a player we've loved watching, and that is Cam Scatterboo. What a character. What a season prior to his week 8 injury. He was a top 24 running back every single week before injury, apart from week 1. My worry is the fact that he shows absolutely no regard for his personal safety in any way, shape, or form. And we raised this in week 7 and he got injured in week 8. Now, I don't think I foresaw anything, but just is a human being that thinks his head is a weapon. He's just a dangerous human being. And what he can do when he's going through players is so impressive. His receiving work was also on the rise prior to that injury, averaging 3 receptions per game. Not colossal, but enough to kind of add that little bit of value at running back. And he clearly has a rapport with Jackson Dart. I know you got a lot of Scatterboo. Are you excited for next season, or are you a little bit worried given how the disregard he shows for his personal safety?
Yeah, I mean, to be blunt, that's he's going to have to temper that slightly if he wants a long-term career in the NFL, or else he's going to spend half the time on the sidelines. He's got to be a bit more cute in the way that he enters contact. But I mean, just look at those 5 across the board. I think, you take out the injuries to Hampton and Scatterboo, and you look at the late season form of Henderson, you've got 5 really big prospects next year who all make a case to be RB1 on their team and to be knocking on the door of the top 10.
Yeah, it's just big numbers being put up by all of them. I've got an extra image here of the wait and see category. So I've got Woody Marks, who finished RB29, Carl Monangai, who finished RB13, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, RB33. All 3 had their moments. All 3 went AWOL at times. And all 3 potentially fit that nice buy low market for me. Which of those 3, we're going to get onto Caleb Johnson in a minute because he's not in this buy low category for me. Which of those 3 would you be most interested? I think for me, it would probably be Monangai with what we saw role-wise.
Yeah, 100% Monangai. He looks like he's got a role in that Bears side. He's a real battering ram, isn't he? So, breaking contact. So he will 100% have a decent role in that Bears attack next year. So yeah, Monangai is someone who I'd be looking to get.
My final question, Ed, when we're talking about running backs, is what happened to Caleb Johnson? He was drafted as the rookie 108 and in redraft the RB27, finishing up as the RB109, and didn't feature at all over the last three games, not because of injury, but because Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell kept him completely off the field. He had a couple of shocking drops, didn't he, in the return game? He's one that worries me. May have been a wasted rookie pick.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get that, won't you? You'll get someone who just can't adapt to the NFL. And yes, it's only his rookie season, and we'll wait and see what happens in the sophomore year. But worrying signs in that first year for him.
And finally, on running backs, completing my final comment is remember Kyren Williams' rookie season. So Kyren Williams in his rookie season was the RB88 with only 35 attempts and 139 rushing yards, 12 targets for 76 yards and no touchdowns. Since then, he's been a top 10 running back 3 years in a row. So let's not completely discount Bashal Tutin, Dylan Sampson, Devin Neal. He only had 3 games due to injury, still finished the RB64, and Jaden Blue. Like Kyren Williams, they were well off everyone's radar at the end of year 1, but absolutely should be in your dynasty stashes somewhere. If they're not rostered, pick them up, stick them in a deep bench and leave them just in case. Do take a moment to subscribe, to like, and to give us a follow, though. Ed, let's move on to probably the class that they've got loads of depth at running back, but the position group that probably has the most interest on it this year, I think, for me.
Yeah, I mean, we came into this season lauding it as a strong tight end class. That there were at the start of the year, if you remember, that there were two tight ends that were head and shoulders above everyone else from a rookie perspective. And to an extent that's how they finished up. With one notable exception. And the exception is who I'm going to talk about first, even though he finished just behind Tyler Warren, and that's Harold Fanning Jr., an absolute revelation in terms of where he was drafted. He was going off the board as about tight end 37, and he's ended up as a top 5 tight end. I think, understandably, people thought, well, Njoku is nailed on as the tight end in Cleveland, and Fanning will struggle for work. But he's emerged ahead of Njoku. They both managed to fashion a role, which is unbelievable, really, in a Browns offense that, let's be honest, hasn't really done that much. Fanning has found a way. 6 touchdowns, 72 receptions, 731 receiving yards. And he looks, a really bright prospect for the future. What do you think going forward? Do the Browns continue with Njoku and Fanning? Is there a role for both of them, or is Fanning the tight end one there now?
I think Njoku missed so much time. Fanning would be the favourite, wouldn't he? But I suppose it depends what they do in other aspects of the receiving game, doesn't it? Are they going to need both of them there because they're going to be thin elsewhere? Who is it going to be? Shadur Sanders that we see throughout it? I don't think there's a lot of questions about him, but Fanning's someone, if you have got, I think you are very, very happy with him, aren't you? As you say, in redraft, tight end 37, that was undrafted by some margin, yes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So he's up there from a redraft point of view as one of the waiver wire pickups of the season. From a dynasty point of view, I imagine he's a player that people moved off taxi squads. I can't imagine he was someone you had on the bench expecting to use like he did, is he?
No, and I think he has been helped by the fact that the rest of the Browns receivers are pretty rubbish, aren't they? Jerry Jeudy's not had a good season. And you would expect the Browns to improve. They need to improve their receiving core, really, don't they? But yeah, Fanning is certainly someone who's an exciting prospect next season. Just ahead of him was somebody who was expected to be ahead of him because of where he ended up. And that's Tyler Warren, finished up as tight end 4. Phenomenal start to the season, but he was affected by Danny Dimes going down later on in the season. He was maybe on course for an even better season until he slightly tailed off towards the end of the season. But yeah, he was drafted in redraft as tight end 10, finished up as tight end 4. Similar stat line to Fanning, slightly fewer touchdowns, but a few more receptions and receiving yards. And he's someone who is exactly as was sold, an impressive, high-quality tight end who's got into a good situation, and I think he'll continue to develop. Colston Loveland, someone who we thought had ended up in the ideal situation in Chicago. We were, of course, waiting to see what Caleb Williams did this season. Caleb Williams had a very good season, and his receivers have benefited, finishing up as tight end 12, which is about where he was being drafted in redraft. And he's someone, again, who maybe warmed up in the second half of the season, and he's been involved, heavily in the receiving game. 6 touchdowns total across the season is something that that I'm sure he'll be happy with. Out of the two of them, I think it was maybe Warren that we were leaning towards. If you had to have one of those two, which would you be choosing at the moment?
I think it would be Loveland, just because there feels a bit more certainty around the Bears, doesn't there? Like, we're assuming Daniel Jones will be back, but that's what's going to happen? I don't know. Tyler Warren, in an equal situation, I think it would absolutely be Warren, but I just think set up at the minute, I'd rather have Loveland.
Yeah, and there's the threat of Kmet, but I don't see him as much of a threat there, really. I think Warren has it locked down, but like you say, what will the situation be in the Colts with the Colts next season? A couple of other players in the top 5 rookie tight end standings. Aronde Gadsden, somebody who kind of came out of nowhere almost halfway through the season and had a real burst of games. Finished up as tight end 15, with close to 700 receiving yards. And again, he was undrafted, like he was way down as tight end 46 average draft position. So good season for him. And well, I mean, the Chargers, when they limped out of the playoffs, didn't they? There's been some criticism of Justin Herbert, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there over the close season. But I think Gadsden has established himself as the top tight end there. And somebody who I know you're a big fan of, Mason Taylor. He featured a lot in our shows for various reasons. Missed some time, and was of course playing for a team that should we say struggled, I think would be a kind way to describe the Jets season. But he did okay, and it'll be. Let's see what happens with the Jets next season. They've got some draft picks. They're going to get. They're surely going to improve next year. And he finished up as tight end 32, and he's maybe somebody who you could invest in. And I think. He would repay you next year because he's shown flashes. He's just not really been backed up, with good coaching, I suppose.
Moving on to quarterbacks, and I'm very, very happy because I decided that I was going to climb aboard the Jackson Dart bandwagon during the off season. And it paid off. I was quite happy with my shares of Dart that I had. Finished up as QB 14. We saw at the top of the show the 9th highest fantasy finish for a quarterback over the last rookie quarterback for the last decade. Let's not forget about what he was up against. He lost Malik Neighbors and then Cam Scatterboo, and he still had a really decent rookie season. 487 rushing yards and 9 rushing touchdowns demonstrates he does have that rookie cheat code at his disposal as well, which we love to see for fantasy. Year 2 is it feels like it could be safe at the minute, but we've seen so many quarterbacks that you enter year 2 and defenses they've got a season of tape on you. They know how to prepare for you better. They know how to unpick different things. So that is a question mark. We saw CJ Stroud, and after that stellar season, what happened the following year. But let's go back to what I said at the beginning. He was without Malik Neighbors, a world-class wide receiver. He was without Cam Scatterboo, who will go into war with his head with a blindfold, and he'll do as he's told and do what is needed for the team. Those back in is really going to help Jackson Dart, and he still did a great job towards the end of the season. 8 top 12 finishes in 12 starts certainly indicates we could have a new fancy weapon at our disposal. Don't forget, he missed the first few games of the season because the Russell Wilson experiment happened. Yet he still finished as high as he did. So what will we see next year? I think he's a player that out of all of these options, I would rather take, and there can be a case made for Cam Ward kicking on and being the better quarterback, but the upside and the risk of Jackson Dart is absolutely what appeals to me. Let's go to Cam Ward then. The number 1 pick in the NFL draft last year, finished as QB 22, 5 passing touchdowns over the first 9 weeks, then 10 over the last 7. He certainly finished the season in a way that gives us hope moving on. Let's not forget the Titans had a quieter version of Pollard at running back. Their leading receiver, Ed, who was the leading receiver in yards for the Titans this year?
Elikayamana?
Chigakonkwo with 560 yards.
Wow.
So Ridley only played 7 games. Ayamana and DK did show signs of being usable targets, but he needs a true wide receiver 1 this offseason. That he absolutely needs someone to be there and be dominant for him. They invested heavily.
He's just got no weapons, has he? I mean, that
exactly.
So that's a pretty impressive stat line with 0 weapons.
Yeah, it really is. The Titans invested heavily in their line. That's not paid off yet. They ranked 25th in pass blocking. It's, for me, Cam Ward's future, and especially his fantasy future next year and the year after, depend more on the moves around him than on him. For me, he's got to get some backup. That O-line's got to kick in. He needs some more weapons. And that is, say, I will decide whether I'm in or out on Cam Ward when free agency is done and the draft is in the books, I think. Tyler Shutt, 17.0 points per game. Obviously, he didn't start the season, but he really did take his chance when he got it. He was definitely helped by a solid season from Chris Olave, Javon Johnson doing bits when he needed. And in his 8 full games, he had 5 top 12 finishes. I said it earlier in the season, New Orleans seem, from a fantasy point of view, at least have replaced Derek Carr with Derek Carr 2. I think we're going to see him perpetually around that QB kind of 8 to 16 region, week in, week out, never having a massive week all year.
He's absolutely nailed on to be QB1 for the Saints next year.
He's absolutely done enough. I think he's done enough to keep Spencer Rattler on the bench. Would I want him as my QB1 in redraft and Dynasty? No. Would I be happy with my QB2 in Superflex? 100%. The difference maker for me is over that kind of Derek Carr comparison from a fantasy points point of view is he's got more to his rush game and he picked up 3 rushing touchdowns as well. Will that remain, though, if the Saints get their new RB1? It's not Kamara. We know that. Are they going to get someone else in? That will be will need to rush as much as he had to this year. We shall see. Will the fancy gremlin Taysom Hill be there stealing work from him as well? But yeah, low-end QB1, I think, is what his future looks like for fantasy from now into the near future. And finally, Shedeur Sanders. We've enjoyed poking fun at Shedeur Sanders. I think everybody has over the course of this year. I would say we've not seen enough at all. So obviously hold on to him in Dynasty. Will he be drafted in redraft? No. I don't think anyone's going to be drafting him in redraft unless you're in a very, very deep league. He is, though, for me, a potentially nice later pickup in best ball. As we get into, best ball season will kick off straight away for people that would like to get drafted and put some money on things. He could be a really interesting pick there. One big game in week 14, but he had 10 interceptions between week 11 and 17. That is a concern. And also, does anyone trust the Browns to make the most of a quarterback? For me, no, at the minute. And that is another concern as well. Finally, Ed, I just want to mention Riley Leonard. Don't count him out. Solid full debut in week 18. And I'm very happy to have him sat lay dormant at the moment on a few taxi squads. Let's wrap things up, though, with our wide receivers. And who are you starting us off with?
It was predicted to be a down year for rookie wide receivers, and so it's proved as only one receiver broke 1,000 yards, and that's who we start off first with. And I think he was the standout receiver in the class when we take out Travis Hunter, who we'll come back to in a bit. And that's Ted McMillan. He dropped into a situation which everyone was very excited about in Carolina, and he's emerged as their wide receiver 1, as he was expected to. He and Bryce Young have formed a great partnership. Finished up as wide receiver 16, which he was being drafted as wide receiver 27. So, above expectation. Like I say, just over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, 70 receptions. Really just a consistent season, Ted McMillan. He was someone who you could slot into your lineup. He had a really kind of solid floor. And I can see him progressing next season and being a reliable receiver for years to come. He'll never be an absolute elite Jamar Chase type receiver, but he's gonna have a long career in the NFL. An impressive start for him. Somebody who started off incredibly impressively, like an absolute freight train, was Emeka Egbuka. And at the start of the season, we were starting to look at Puka Nacua style rookie records, weren't we? But off the boil, as the Bucks kind of went off the boil, I guess. There were a few drops. But I'm still excited for a year 2, Egbuka. Are you, or have you been slightly put off by the dip in the second half of the season?
I'm in the season, obviously that dip concerned greatly. Now going into year 2, we're going to bang on through the offseason about how much we like to target year 2 wide receivers. I think that end of season dip hopefully just makes him a really, really good value in drafts this offseason.
Yeah, because I think he finished off. I think he was higher than that. I think you might have on the screen that they're ADPs, because I think that is.
Put that wrong.
Yeah, I think he was. He finished off.
Oh,
As
wide receiver 23. Yeah, I've typed that in wrong.
Yeah, and so he had a very solid season overall, and he had a couple of decent weeks later in the season. Despite not quite hitting the heights, he was close to 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, and pretty decent season. Somebody who kind of had a slight reverse to the season that Egbuka had was Luther Burden. Started off very quietly, was pretty much anonymous. I mean, we struggled all year, didn't we, with Bears receivers? They were so impossible to predict. But I think Burden is somebody who had a much better second half of the season. And I think he's someone I'm going to be trying to get shares in, because I do expect him to have a good sophomore breakout. 47 receptions, 650 yards. He ended up being finishing about where he was being drafted. So yeah, solid from Luther Burden. Jaden Higgins. Now, I mean, he's someone who's finished slightly behind Burden in the rankings, and he was someone maybe more was expected of. I don't know whether that's fair. Has he been impacted by some of the sloppy play of CJ Stroud? We're recording this, in the middle of the playoffs, where Stroud's had a couple of dodgy games, and that's affected his receivers. But again, I mean, if you were to choose between Burden and Higgins, who are you going for in drafts next year?
Burden.
It's that simple, is it? Yeah.
I just don't. I don't
He's
trust
got a better
CJ Stroud at all. Yeah.
Caleb Williams has had an excellent season, hasn't he? So I think I'd be all in on Burden. And we mentioned him briefly, Elikai Amana, who's had a decent season in an offense that has struggled. 40 receptions, 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. I think he's someone who could progress next year. He's not been massively fantasy relevant. He's had a few big weeks and was kind of maybe somebody who you'd play in DFS on a good week. He's not in the best situation at Elikai Amana, but someone who could have a solid season next season. There are, of course, others. Travis Hunter, what do we get from him next season? I think even before his injury, I mean, he did have that. He seemed to have a breakout season on offense before his breakout week before his injury. So does he come back to that level? I'm not sure. Then you've got Trey Harris, Pat Bryant, Chimera DK, who's had quite a lot of punt return work. So as you mentioned earlier, that there will be people lower down the list who have breakouts, that they're the ones to keep an eye on.
I think the Egbuka Burden Jekyll and Hyde season, I think really stands out to me. So Egbuka, we've got there 11.5 fantasy points going over the season. His first 5 weeks, that was 20.5. And then looking at Luther Burden's role, how it grew after the bye. So weeks 1 to 10, he was averaging 2.6 targets. The last 6 games, he averaged 6.3. So I'm very much picking and choosing. I'm going to pick to pay attention to the first half of Egbuka's season and the second half to Burden's, because it's what I would like to happen next year. And apologies to all the players on the screen there if you are watching. I do apologise for getting your finishes wrong. So just to confirm, for McMillan, it's wide receiver 16 finish. Egbuka, wide receiver 23 finish. That is his ADP on the screen. Burden, wide receiver 48. Higgins, wide receiver 47. And Ayamana, wide receiver 53. So yeah, I apologize. I have put their ADPs on there instead. So that is the end of our rookie review. We're going to be starting to look straight ahead to the 2026 draft. So our rookie review will be followed up by some rookie previews in about 6 weeks or so. Which of those rookies, Ed, if you could have one rookie on your redraft roster next year, who would it be? And if you had one rookie that was going to be the cornerstone of your dynasty roster for the next 5 years, who would it be?
Ooh, that's very good. Redraft next year, I expect. I think Oh no! Redraft next year. Ted McMillan. I think is so reliable, and I'd take him with confidence. In terms of dynasty, probably Jackson Dart, or maybe a Maori in Hampton. I do really like Hampton. I think he's in a great situation. I mean, Genty's an obvious call, but the Raiders do worry me. So yeah, what about you?
I kind of agree with you there. I think that next year, I just see that Travion Henson true breakout year. It's just Stevenson does worry me. So it's whether he can get the volume. Hampton, hopefully with a bit of a change of offensive coordinator again in LA, maybe we'll see even more from him. I do think, though, Genty, if the Raiders can get things right, you just look at how, if you get a true bona fide RB1 who is as rugged and as just as solid a player as Genty is, you see what happens. So, yeah, I think Genty could well break the mold as far as longevity for running back goes. It's just, are we going to have to wait for years to see the best of it until a trade happens? That is my worry. But to say we will get stuck right into our dynasty content from here on onwards. Our show next week is going to be looking at some interesting fantasy talking points. And then after that, we will get right into our dynasty content for the next few months of the off season. But that's all I've got to say on the rookies, Ed. Anything you want to add?
No, that's all from me too.
Right. So as always, bada bing, bada bye. And Malcolm, take us home.
You have been listening to the team from TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Twitter and Instagram.